Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast this week in America. Great to have you with us on the program today. As mentioned, we're talking with Rosemarie Kaupp, author of the new book, The Umbrella Tales, Umbrella in the City. Read, laugh, and learn a little French. Go with the puppy Umbrella from the farm to the city. Two funny, spoiled poodle sisters live there with a grandmother. Well, she's got a secret. Umbrella must make friends with the poodles. Can little Umbrella do this, and will the grandmother's secret help her? We'll follow Umberella's adventure during her first year in the book, The Umbrella Tales, Umbrella in the City by Rosemarie Kaupp. Rosemarie with us on the program. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here. So happy to share this time with you and your listeners, and I'm excited to do the show today.
Well, the book is very entertaining, and there's some valuable lessons in there as well, and we'll talk about that during the course of the program. Maybe I enjoyed it more than I should have because it's not really designed for my age level. It's for a little younger child. Let's talk about the star of the book, Umbrella. As I said, based on a dog that you had, was a trusted family friend for what, like about 17 years, I understand?
Almost, yes, she lived to be almost 17, just 2 months shy of her 17th birthday, yes.
And here's a dog that you actually found. You're in the park with your son, and they were giving a litter away.
Yes, they were giving away a litter of puppies. She was very young, and she was a very pretty puppy with a brindle coat, and it attracted me. And it was close to my son's 13th birthday, and I thought, well, this would be a wonderful birthday gift for him. So we selected Amber, and we named her Amber because she had a lot of red in her coat. So we named her Amber, and we brought her home, and the rest is history.
Well,
And
yeah, as so often happens when you have a pet like that, this is a constant in your life. As you go through several tragedies, Amber is there with you throughout all of this. Talk about
yes.
what you went through and the inspiration, which is, you mentioned your son Chris is just around his 13th birthday when you were able to take Amber in. Talk about the impact he had on your life and the book and why this is so meaningful to you.
Yes. Even though she was a very young puppy, as soon as I brought her home, my husband was just beginning to have some health problems and was sitting in his lounge chair, and I put her right in his lap. And I don't know if she sensed that he was not well, but from that time on, whenever he was home and sitting in that chair, she was in his lap and always sat there with him throughout the many years of his illness. And when my son was almost, let me see, it was just slightly past his 23rd birthday that he was accidentally killed. And that was a tremendous, unexpected and tremendous tragedy. And my husband, by that point, was very, very ill. And this had a tremendous impact on him. And I think that he really lost his will to live. And he died 6 weeks later. And I was a very lost soul. And Amber was there throughout all of this tragedy. And she was with me. And she was the one constant in my life. And she really, I believe, helped me get through all this. And I, was trying to work, and I did work another 2 years. And when I was retired, and I thought, well, she was with me through all of this. And I decided, I had so much experience with children. I had 24 years as a school nurse. And I thought, well, I know a lot about dogs. She had taught me so much about living with a dog. And I know a lot about children. And I decided to write. And I thought, I'll write a book based on her. And she's the main character. And I started to write. And it was very therapeutic for me. And I decided to write one book based on Amber. And both books were based on her. But I dedicated one book to my son and one book to my husband, and this brought me a great peace. I was able to memorialize in the first book, my son. I put him as a character in the book. He's the teenage owner of Prince, who is the dog Umbrella falls in love with. They meet in obedience school, and they fall in love, and he's the teenage owner of Prince. So he is in the book, and it memorializes his life. And
you mentioned the book was therapeutic. As you're going through this, you faced a decision. Do you go forward? Do you let this get you where life is pretty much over for you at that point? You really needed to find what's some motivation, some inspiration to keep going. And obviously the book gave you this.
yes, indeed. it was a way to move forward. I think it's very important. I woke up several weeks after all this happened. I woke up one morning and I looked at Amber and I thought, well, we're in a fine mess here. Just Chris is gone, Daddy's gone, and what are we going to do? And I just realized that I could let this destroy me, or I could go on with my life, and this is the choice. And I realized then that when this happens, you have to make a choice. It doesn't automatically all of a sudden just leave you. Grief doesn't just leave you. You have to work your way out of it. You can't just sit there and, well, tomorrow will be better and I'll just sit here and wait for that to happen. It doesn't happen. You have to work at it. You really have to work at it. And the books were a way of doing that. And I'm finding a way through the grief and, a distraction, a way to
Right.
move forward, to move forward.
Rosemarie Kaupp, our
Yeah.
guest on the program. Rosemarie and Kaupp is Kaupp. The book is called The Amberella Tales, Amberella in the City. That's the first of the two books. That's what we're talking about on the program today. Our website is Rosemarie Kaupp, and that's KAUPP.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Rosemarie's website and get information on the book. It, of course, is available at Amazon as well. When you talk about this, and it was therapeutic writing it, and I know you've discussed this before, a lot of people saying this, I don't know, I remember maybe 15, 20 years ago when I first heard the expression closure, that everybody's looking for closure in these situations. And you said there really is no closure. And I used to think of this when they would say closure, like there was something that was going to come in, automatic close that door, and life goes on. That really doesn't happen like that, does it?
No, I really think that's kind of a misnomer. When someone dies, especially a young person, it's like an unfinished book because there's so much that dies with them. You don't get to see graduations or weddings or grandchildren or how their life would turn out with a career. So there really can't be closure. I'm not sure who decided on that term, but it's really a fallacy. It's a false, not a false illusion. It's a very false illusion. I think if someone is very elderly and has led a very full life, maybe in a case like that, you can get some closure. But when you have a sudden death, I think it's, especially a young person, it's very, very difficult to attain what we call closure. I think you can move forward. The thing that you have to strive for is acceptance, that you have to accept what has happened. And that's a hard task. And that's part of the grieving process. But until you make peace with what has happened, and then you can move on with your life. You never forget it. You never, forgiveness is another issue, and it can take a lifetime, but you have to accept what has happened and say, this is my life, this has happened. Now, what can I do with it? How can I make it better? Better in the sense that, can I make something good come out of this? What can I do to help other people? Learn from my experience.
And I get the impression
You know,
that Chris was sort of with you, wasn't he, as you were writing this? You used to read to him as he was a child, and
yes, yes.
he really enjoyed that. He's a character in the book. I get the impression they were sort of your muse as you were writing this.
Absolutely. I would sit and write and I'd say, Chris would like this, or Chris would think this was funny, or that type of thing. Yes, I remember so much reading to him and what he liked and um, the kind of stories he liked. And I wanted to do that. I wanted children to have characters they could relate to and characters they could be friends with and lifelong memories, things like that. Because he had ADD as a child, and school was not always easy for him. And childhood has a lot of struggles, and it's not always, happy. And I wanted children to be able to be immersed in these books and have happy times with the books and have happy memories and get away from the stresses that could be in their lives, whether they be school or family or whatever. But these books to be a safe and happy place for them to retreat to, in other words.
And they are. We're talking about the Amberella Tales, specifically the book Amberella in the City. Rosemarie Kaupp, our guest on today's program. Books available at Amazon, all the usual places around the country. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on for that. In talking about the book, I mentioned just briefly what was happening there, but she's got the human lady in this, the grandmere. Talk about her because she's fascinating and ends up taking everybody off to France. So we not only get this great story, we get a little French, French vocabulary, a little French sightseeing in as well in the book.
Yes, grandmare is quite exciting because she understands dogs when they talk. But this is a secret. No one knows this in the family. She's kept it a secret all her life. She discovered it in her childhood, but she's never revealed it. So it's quite exciting because the cook in the family seems to think there's something strange about this grandmother and her relationship with this poodle because she'll find things moved like her book and the TV remote because grandmare's taught the dogs to read. Her poodles can read because since she understands them when they talk, she's really developed them. Their human, if you will, their human capabilities. And some little things happen that she'll let things slip. At one point, the cook seems to think that Zozue and Tutsu, the poodles, took her book, her romance novel, and she approaches Grandmere about it, and Grandmere says, "Oh no, they know they're not allowed to read romance novels." And the and the cook says, "Pardon, Mrs." And she says, "Oh, I mean, they wouldn't take your book." And then the cook goes to the daughter of the household and says, "I'm sorry, but the older missus seems to be going around the bend a little bit. She seems to think those poodles can read." And the daughter says, "Oh, that's ridiculous. I'm sure you're mistaken, you know." So no one believes it, but the cook is quite sure that there's something very odd about this, you know. So it's kind of fun playing around with this, you know. So
I mentioned
and
some of the lessons that you have that are subtle, but boy, they really they're good guidance for the young people who are reading.
yes,
And you're talking
yes,
about Amberella, not accepted at first in the new family, and then this relationship she has with Prince from obedience school. She's dealing with new feelings there. What are some of the
yes.
topics that you deal with? Whereas as young readers are reading this, they're learning how to handle these situations because they go through that too. They go through this feeling of being accepted, possibly being bullied from time to time, and not quite knowing what to do. And they also have these feelings for people that they're dealing with that they've never had before.
Yes, Amberella, you know, she misses her mother, so she has to kind of get over that and try to think, well, what would Mama, you know, tell me to do with trying to get along with Zozu and Tutsu? They don't like me, and how would she tell me to handle this? So she has to figure that out. How could she make friends? And so that's one thing, how to make friends with people and not just to be angry and go off in a corner and sulk. So she has to figure that out. And she's able to do that, and she makes friends with them. And they want her to be a certain way, but it's not in her character to be as fussy as they are about certain things and wanting to wear clothes and things like that because she grew up she was in the country, and dogs in the country don't primp and wear clothes like dogs in the city. So she's not quite like them, and she doesn't want to be like them, so certain things she won't do, but she loves and accepts them even though they're different from her. So that's another thing, that you can have friends and be a little bit different and still accept each other. So that's one lesson. And to stand up for yourself, that's another lesson. And the boy girl feelings, she has to learn to deal with those. And waiting for Grandmere to call Prince's family because they want to visit. And that quite doesn't work out, but eventually in the book it does. So she has a lot of little feelings to deal with. And I think it's interesting, you know, and she makes other friends in obedience class, and they're a little bit different. And there's one little dog who stutters, and the other dogs make fun of him. And Umbrella befriends him. And, you know, it's again, there's it's showing how with differences you have to accept things, and how he appreciates that friendship so much, and he's able to blossom and be accepted, and how good she feels about that, and how good he feels. And I think there's a lesson that when you extend some friendship to someone, how much you can help them, and how much he came out and she saw a different side in him, that, you know, he was more than just his stuttering, of course. So there's quite a few lessons, I think, in the book.
The book is called The Amberella Tales, Amberella in the City. It's the first of two books, and I understand Rosemarie is working on a third. Rosemarie Kaupp, our guest on the program. Her website is very simple. It's rosemariekaupp.com. The book's available at Amazon. You can link onto our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and go directly to Rosemarie's website. A few minutes left in the program. It's interesting. Deciding I'm going to write this book is one thing. To do it and to do it well is another. And all of the reviews are glowing with what you were able to do with short chapters, the engaging writing style that you have, the fact that the illustrations. How difficult was it, this whole process? Because you've got it down where you can hold the attention of the target readers that you've got and get a good story across at the same time. How difficult was it to find that balance?
Well, it was quite a learning experience. I would say that, the writing and my writing style, I write in longhand and then I'll put it in the computer. I will do that. And then as I put it in the computer, I edit it. And I'll do that several times. Then I'll take it out and I'll edit the printed copy. And I might go through that 3 or 4 times till I get it to where I want it. And then the illustrations, you do that mostly through the publisher. And that you have to be quite involved with, telling them what you want. You have to describe every character in detail and where you want the scene and how you describe the scene in detail, where you want it in the chapter, and making sure the text and the illustration match. So it's a very involved, intensive, detailed process. So the first book, it was very time-consuming and very I spent a few sleepless nights trying to get things just right, And children's writing is very keyhole because with certain ages, it's a certain size book, a certain number of pages, a certain number of illustrations, and it has to match what is in the bookstores and in the libraries. The size book has to match the age,
Right.
the number of pages has to match the age. So you have to get that right in order for the book to be produced and saleable and storable in a bookstore and in a library. So that all has to be right. And as I said, I did an interview about writing a book, and I said the best thing that new writers can do is to take some classes about writing. You can find these classes usually in community schools, like the evening schools that school
Yes.
districts
Yes.
give, and also with community programs like museums and cultural centers will give the classes with about writing, creative writing, with an eye to publishing. So they're writing classes that tell you about publishing, not just creative writing, but writing geared to publishing. And you really need to get a little background in that so you're not off on a tangent and doing the wrong thing.
Well, you did an excellent job. We're talking about the Amberella Tales, specifically the first book, Amberella in the City. Rosemarie Kaupp, our guest on the program, that's spelled Kaupp. Rosemarie Kaupp, KAUPP.com is the website. The book's available at Amazon. You can link on directly to Rosemarie's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Rosemarie, it was a pleasure having you on the program. Really enjoyed the book, the messages in the book. Looking forward to more in the series. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Back right after these messages.